Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Some Parts Not Included, a podcast about three friends who are amputees just talking about amputee stuff. My name is Amanda Marie, and I am a right leg amputee, and these are my co hosts.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I'm a right arm amputee.
And I am James, and I am a left arm amputee.
Today, we are going to talk about our insecurities. And, normally we're pretty confident people, we're pretty positive people, but it would be unrealistic to say that we don't have insecurities or haven't had insecurities throughout our life. So why don't we get started with that? Does anyone want to get started with what theirs is first? My dog has insecurities. She'd like to get started first.
I think that everyone, not just amputees, have insecurities, and I think that it's a very, very normal thing to have. I would probably say that my insecurity sometimes is actually what my stump looks like. So mine is so useful because I have the bend in my arm. So I'm able to hold things and stuff like that. But with that said, when I'm wearing an artificial limb or when I'm using it, it just doesn't look as clean or as normal, I guess. Normal, I guess, as most others would be, or most other stumps would be. So I think that that's probably maybe my biggest insecurity, but generally I'm a pretty confident person. It doesn't really bother me that much. I sometimes go long periods of time leaving the house without my artificial arm on or just whatever. And it doesn't really bother me that much, really.
Jamie, I'm really surprised to hear you say that because you rock the nub so well. Like you used to, you know what I mean? Like you just go out there in public and you would use your residual limb. You would have your nub. Sometimes you wouldn't wear a prosthesis. You used it so well and you're so confident about it that I wouldn't think you would have that. But I honestly think that's a normal thing because for me, it's literally the exact same thing. It's body image. And it's always an insecurity. Like, I mean, how I look, how my residual limb looks, that I always wear an artificial arm when I go out. And I don't want to say that I'm not confident enough to go out without my arm on until I had my daughter, which is really a really weird thing. But all of a sudden, it's almost like I just see how amazing she's the same. She uses her little nubby for everything. And once she was born, I was like, it gave me all the confidence in the world to I'll go out without my arm and rock it too, because it's such a beautiful thing. When I see her and how she looks, I'm like, she's such a beautiful human being, exactly the way she looks, like with her little nubby and when she doesn't wear her arm. So it's weird. Once I had my daughter, that's what kind of gave me the confidence to be like, you know what? Who cares what people think? Like when I go out and and I just have no arm on. Not that I do it that often even, but a lot of my friends used to say the same. Like, why do you care? Like, why do you have to wear an arm all the time? Why don't you just rock the nub? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just a personal preference, right? But even with my artificial limb, one of the insecurities I have is like the different sizes of like the different size of my residual limb and my sound limb. So like my sound limb, the muscle on this arm's a lot bigger and the forearm's a lot bigger than, if you can see like the difference or whatever. If I stand up, it's just like stand up a bit more. Like it's that transition it just looks skinnier, and that was always an insecurity of mine. So I usually wear longer sleeves, and like it's that transition from where your arm goes into your prosthetic device that always it just didn't look right to me. I don't know if it's because I'm a Libra and I want everything to be balanced. Like I want everything to be equal sides, you know what I mean? But it's funny because it's the same thing. Like it's a body image thing. I've always kind of that's been one of my insecurities, and that's why I would never really, I always wear my artificial limb when I go out. But again, in these last few years since I had my daughter, that's all changed because I want to put a positive example forward for her that who cares about the way
It's
you look, or if people look at you differently, you're
mhm.
awesome and you can rock it and you're amazing the way you are. You know what I mean? So
It's really interesting that you say that, James, because I find that when I'm with other amputees, is I want to show it off more. Do you guys
hmm,
find that? Like
yeah.
when there's
Yeah.
more than one of us, it's just like, oh, I mean, I'm all out there. Like, like everyone's gonna see.
Power
Everyone's
in
gonna see.
numbers.
Yes, yes. So do you guys find that too? Do you guys find that if there are more than just you out, do you find that you feel oh sorry, cat in the way. Hold on.
Cat interruption.
We're
We got
having
animals all over the place this episode.
some, having some
So
pet difficulties.
if there are more than us, okay, if there are more than just you going out, do you find that that it is much easier to just kind of be out there and be more confident?
Yeah, I definitely do. I've always found that when I'm out with, yeah, just power in numbers, I guess, there builds like a sense of confidence that where you go, that you feel more comfortable or included, or that the other person knows what you're going through or what you're thinking. And so you feel, even I feel more comfortable to ask for help, or, I don't know. That's, yeah, definitely. I would consider myself a lot more, not that I'm not confident. I definitely, like both of you indicated, I struggle as well with body image around the look of my stump. It's also just because of the disability I do have and the way it developed. It was basically just like a tibia bone that's hanging out. So the way that developed, there was no muscle development. So it's kind of confusing how it grows and develops. Even the doctors don't really have answers for it. And so when I'm pretty confident, but I think experience has made me not confident. So, experience meaning other people staring at me, other people's rude comments. That's what's built insecurities with me over time. Whereas when I was younger, I don't really remember having too big of a body image issues. So, that's definitely something kind of came along the way as we grow. But I think whether I was an amputee or not, those kind of body images would have kicked in just as natural when you hit like teen years, that kind of thing, and your body's changing. So it's similar to that, but then it feels very secluded as well because not
Specific.
everybody around you, yeah, is going through that same thing.
Do
But
you
and especially I was a swimmer, so I was always going to the pool, and so I didn't care. But people, as you're changing before or after, like everyone's coming up to you and talking to you and staring and asking questions, and it's like, yo, I'm just trying to get, like, I would have to change privately just because I was like, everyone's staring at me. I don't feel comfortable like getting nude and putting clothes on. Where then it started to become an insecurity where I would just throw my clothes on over top of my bathing suit, and my clothes would be wet and everything was wet. And I'd be like, I'll just do it when I get home. So even when I go to the gym now, I don't go and like shower at the gym, even though my gym has showers. I'm always just so much comfortably like, I'd rather just like quickly rush home and go shower there because I don't feel like I'm going to have to deal with the mobility issues in the showers and people staring in the showers. So it's weird how
I've
it like, I'm
never,
confident, but you have these like little
yeah, I've
things your
never
brain
thought
does.
about that. I've never thought about that, Amanda. Like I've never thought about, like showering after the gym and like those mobility issues, and because that looks so different for you than it does for most people, especially because a lot of others who have mobility issues wouldn't always necessarily be at the gym, right? So I've never really thought about that. That's such an interesting thing.
Yeah, actually, one of my good friends who's a leg amputee. Well, actually, one thing I wanted to point out is that the height of my insecurities, you mentioned like as a teenager, the height of my insecurities is as a teenager. And I think that maybe goes for everybody and all teenagers for
Yeah.
everything, not just amputees. It's just like I going to high school and like I would always wear an arm, but there was another girl though I went to high school with that didn't wear an arm. So she was just like I said, she was just rocking the nub, and like that's confidence right there. But what I was going to say is that one of my good friends who's a leg amputee, when you were talking about power and numbers, when we go out together, I always we always kind of forget we're kind of like an amputee team when we go out. We're like two amputees, and I wonder we always wonder, are people looking at us and thinking like, oh, look at the cute amputee couple, look at those two, you know what I mean? Like, look at those two amputee friends, and like, so I'm wondering if
I
there's
think
like
we do.
the more insecurity there, but or less insecurity, because you guys are saying power of numbers, you should have less insecurity when you're with your amputee friends. But
No,
I,
I'm not insecure, but I do think when there's like a group of us, like if there's more than two, like once we
mhm.
start in 3 plus, I've always felt like, is this how able-bodied people like like
Yeah,
now I'm not the
we're
minority when I'm
yeah,
going, you know what I mean?
exactly.
I start being like, oh my gosh, is this the how it feels inside? I don't know. I loved it.
Me
Like, you
too. Me
know,
too.
it's almost like the events that we did when we were kids, where we'd be at a hotel and we'd be with all our amputee friends, like 30 of us, right? And we go down to the swimming pool, and then there would be one family that would walk in with their kids and be like, and it's like,
The
yeah, that's
normie
right. Come
family.
on for a swim. There'd be arms and legs all around the side. And like, that's the most comfortable you would ever feel, is when you have like
Yeah.
that many numbers. You're just like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is our pool now. But hey, we're always obviously accepting of anyone to come in the pool. And a lot of times it would just be like explaining to them, like, hey, we'll educate your kids about amputees, right? And that's sort of the point of it, right? And kind of the point of this podcast sometimes too, is just educating people about amputees and how we live in our lives. So um
I have like a very specific friend that I go to concerts with who is an amputee as well, like a very specific band anyway. And so it's always really cool because that amputee, when you go to things like that, you generally don't really want to wear an arm because, if you're dancing or you're moving around too much, or if there's a lot of people in one room, getting warm is super uncomfortable when you're wearing an artificial arm. And I know, Amanda, you can't choose that, but we we
Yeah.
often will choose to just be armless or whatever.
I feel like it's
And
rubbing it in my
so
face.
I would never, Jamie. I don't know how you do that still, even
really,
after. Yeah, I can't. No, no, no,
what?
never.
No
No.
way, really?
I go to many concerts. Never. I have a festival arm. So I.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anyway, so she also doesn't wear an arm, and we often take photos, and we're the opposite side. So we often take photos with our like arms, like our stumps out, like together. Like it's
That's so cool.
it's actually like really cute
That's
photos.
awesome, man.
But yeah, so I always feel more empowered when I'm with another amputee, even if it's just one. And like some of my best friends as well, I mean, obviously, are amputees, and like as an example, if I go out with either one of you, I just feel more comfortable. Even though there are other people around who may look at us, but it's like doesn't matter. Us, like we're together.
And not even that we're necessarily helping each other with anything, but just like the
No,
moral support of just your presence and energy beside someone that's going through the same thing. Yeah, it's moving.
It is
absolutely.
absolutely. Have you ever been out with an amputee, and you've noticed other people staring at like them, and you want to be like, you just, it's weird, like you notice that other people are, and you want to say something, like because I've been out with, well, I mean, my god, I've met so many amputees in my life, and I have so many good friends that are amputees, and one in particular, I remember I was out with a multiple amputee, and so missing both legs and an arm, and I would stare daggers at people at the restaurant. Like, what are you looking at? You know what I mean? Like, don't you look at my friend like that, right? We're just here trying to have some dinner. Like, I would get so defensive for my
I
amputee friends in those cases, and like all the time, I would, yeah, just want to. I don't think I ever got up and went over and said anything, but I would be looking at them like, hey, I see you looking over here. I would, catch their eye, like, hey, hi, yeah, we see you, or do a little. I've done a wave before, and then, but again, it's only for adults. Like kids are curious and they're gonna stare. That's fine, and that's an opportunity to. Yeah, you want to ask a question, right? You want to ask a question about our limb, and you can explain and talk to them. But I feel like some adults are maybe kind of ignorant towards amputees, and by ignorant I mean just like don't understand or have never really seen it maybe, so maybe they need want to ask a question too. It's the same thing. It's not out of like, not like they're trying to be mean or whatever, or trying to be like, what's the word I'm looking for here, just staring at you, right? It's not very nice. So
I
they
definitely
might
have more I definitely
go
have
ahead.
more patience with people staring at me than I do if they're staring at one of my people. I become more defensive when I notice them doing it, even if they're not necessarily an amputee. Maybe it's something else as to why. Another reason that I can't think of off the top of my head, because usually it's me that's the center of attention, unfortunately, of the stares. But I definitely resonate with what you're saying. Like, I feel defensive as opposed to when it's just me on my
Yeah,
own. Do you have any other insecurities aside from body image? I know we all shared that same insecurity, but is there anything else?
I play a lot of hockey, like a lot of sports, so sometimes when I go and I don't wear an arm when I play hockey. I just tuck the stick under my arm. I have a little strap that goes around my residual limb or my nubby. And so when I first started playing hockey that way, on the ice, sometimes I'd have a bit of an insecurity. I feel like you have to approve yourself all the time as an amputee. Like people see you and they either like it went two ways. Either they take it easy on you, which I hate. I hate when people, you know, don't just treat me normal and play me as hard as they would play any other guy on the puck with two hands or whatever, right? But then it goes the other way because I'm a pretty decent hockey player for one arm, and not that I'm tooting my own horn, but I'm playing a men's league, but I'm a pretty decent hockey player, and but it goes the other way where there are individuals that really can't handle that you're able to outskate them, even though I have both my legs, so it's like skating's nothing. It's the stick handling and shooting. But even though when I'm scoring or whatever, I've had a few people that are like they can't handle the fact that you're better than them, right? And so they lash out at you because of that. And I've like mainly when I actually played in Toronto, I found this that I had a incident where some guy was chirping me for having one arm, and boy did that ever light the fire in me that night. And I ended up scoring a goal, and then I went by their bench and I was like, hey, how'd you guys like that goal? I think that's one for me, zero for you guys, right? Anyway, so but when I started to play hockey, that was a bit of an insecurity for me, playing in just like with random people in men's leagues.
It's a team sport, James, not an individual sport.
Oh, absolutely,
You
absolutely.
said me and zero for you guys. That's why I'm.
Yeah, and that's and that because we were winning 4-0, 3-0 until I scored that goal was 4-0. But I just meant zero for them because they hadn't scored yet, and it was that night. It was about me. It was a team sport. We did win. And
I
Jamie, I am
mean,
a team player.
I
All right.
understand it's always about me, James. So I understand.
Yeah. But just in that particular instance, I was like, that's one for me. And how many goals did you guys have? Yeah, zero, right? You guys don't have any. So I guess, yeah, I'm doing better. But it was just because they had lit the fire. But he had made fun of me that night for having one arm, and he made some chirps about me anyway. So that's why I did that. And but it was 4-0, so it was a team win. We were a team.
What about you, Amanda? Do you have any other insecurities?
Oh, I have a ton. I I'm the most confident, insecure person that probably exists. It's kind of strange. I always, even if I'm insecure about something, I kind of just am like, I'll own the insecurity and be confident about it, because I think that's just human nature, is to insecurities, the fear, right? Just of what we're about to do if we're not used to it, or we have questions or anxiety about it, which we all have. So I think uh, there's a really great example, actually, it's just coming to mind super quick, but mine's also kind of related to being active. So my leg, I have hyperhidrosis currently, which just means I have excessive amount of sweating. And because I have a silicone liner that also makes me sweat, the combination of the two just means my leg just slides right off, especially in the summer or hot months, or if I'm being physically active. So for me, a big insecurity is when I'm going through these challenges is basically going out into public and just losing my leg, and then being stuck in the middle of a task without my mobility. So I am currently, so I do have a suspension socket. We're looking at testing other things, but for safety reasons now, I need to wear a suspension belt on top of it, because when I lose suction, it's just too dangerous. And I found myself in so many scenarios of I'd go out and do one errand, and then I'd have to like pause or just leave the store, or stop in the middle and have to go home and fix it and go back out. And after a while, it's like, we're not getting any errands really done today. But and I think those insecurities kind of go into things like probably I do more dance classes. And it's not that I'm insecure about dancing in front of people. It's just a real big pain in the butt to constantly have to go somewhere else to go empty out my leg, dry it out, air it out, get it back on, make sure it's comfortable. And then by the time I did that, half the class would be over, just to go back out for like half a song. So for me, I guess that's a really big challenge that becomes like an insecurity. It makes me not want to go out to these group programs, because I'm like, well, I'm just going to have all these problems. And for me to fix my leg, I have to take my pants off to do so. So it's like, do I want to hang out in my underwear with a bunch of people? Like, how close am I to these people?
Do
So
I
there's a
really
lot
want to
of
get half
things.
naked? Do I
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really want
And
to get
then
half naked?
again, this is part where the two insecurities kind of link together. Not only am I now de-pantsing and in my underwear in front of them, now they're staring at me, watching me, because human curiosity is like, oh, I'll watch her put her leg on. So I'm sitting there trying to struggle with this sweaty situation that's frustrating. And then other people are watching, being like, oh, and I get their curiosity. But it just, I feel like that level of like, I feel my insecurities rising, or I'm very aware of them paying attention to me. And then I'm like, okay, don't look at me, I don't want you watching me do this, like, this is a private area. So I get a lot
Yeah.
of that attention when stuff like that happens. So in my brain, I'm always mapping out, what does it look like? Where are the bathrooms? Am I able
Mhm.
to kind of skate back and forth to fix it and go back? So I don't really do a lot of classes. I like to do stuff on my own. And I don't even really like a gym partner for that reason. I used to go with my mom because she understood and was like, obviously patient about it. But yeah, and it's not that I'm insecure about a gym partner. I just feel like I just, then my vision, I become very independent, because then my
Yes.
brain is just like, I know what I have to do. It doesn't matter how long it takes me to get there. And I just don't feel like I'm making somebody else wait on me. So
I feel like the exact same way, basically. I don't like trying new things or trying to do new things that I've never tried before in front of other people. So that for me is a huge insecurity. So like as an example, going mini putting, or trying golf, or trying to play hockey, or like trying to fold a paper airplane. I don't know. I'm just kidding, obviously, about the paper airplane, but
we
but
all agree.
you get what I'm you get where I'm going with this, right? That
Yeah.
that just new things, because I just look different, right? So as an example, going to the gym, and trying equipment where, number one, I'm going to look different, number two, that doctors have already told me you should probably try your best to not injure your shoulder more than you already have. So I think all of that stuff is just, it becomes a little bit uncomfortable, and so that's where I'm probably super insecure, the most, trying new things,
Well,
Hmm.
using.
it feels
I
like
agree with
everyone's
that.
watching you too, right? Like there's
Absolutely.
this whole attention's on you, which I don't like that feeling.
Hmm.
But yeah, everyone's kind of watching you to be like, wow, what is this amputee gonna do next? You're like, might not be anything motivating or
Yeah.
inspiring. Just turn around for a minute.
it's
Avert your
it's
eyes while I
it's
do
so
this.
interesting. It's so interesting how in certain parts of our life we want to stand out, and then in other parts of our life we want to be anonymous. And I think that is definitely, that embodies who I am completely. I do things to stand out all the time. I have some tattoos. Like I put myself out there. Like I sometimes don't wear my arm. I go out with other amputees. Like I do all of those things to stand out. But then there are other times where I want to be completely anonymous, and I want to just kind of like fly under the radar for people to not notice me. So it's interesting how there's a mix there.
Yeah,
Would you guys, you know, analyzing your feelings, how would you like? Do you think that you're probably the same?
yeah, I know I am. I grew up remembering having the mentality of if people are going to stare, I might as well just give them something to stare at. And so I was very willing to have funky hairstyles or wear different clothes that maybe weren't the trendiest at the time. And just experimenting with like my nails or jewelry, all that kind of stuff, because might as well give them something to look at if they're
Yeah, I agree
staring.
with that. Absolutely. I'm like that now. It's like most days, it depends on the day, I think. Like some days I'm not feeling it so much, but for the most part, I just put it out there now. I rock it. I mean, look at my arm. It's very noticeable. It's like it's not like skin colored, but when I was a teenager, it was like a realistic looking hand, and I had the realistic looking skin, and like I wear long sleeves and all that stuff. But it it seems to come a lot back to body image insecurities for amputees, right? Uh,
These are all just like offshoots of body.
little offshoots, right? But like
But
sometimes I'm insecure when I use my myoelectric hand and people are looking at me on how I use it, because sometimes it's kind of difficult to grab things or do things with it, even though I'm a really good user. Like I've been using it, God, 20 years now. I didn't use it as a teenager, but now as since about in my early 20s, I started using it, and I'd never go back. Like I love it. But yeah, sometimes when people are watching me do things like tie my shoes or skates, I get a little bit insecure if I'm slow or I mess up. I don't really care that much, but like I feel like people are looking at me when I'm using my myoelectric, and if and seeing like how well I use it, or and then it like puts pressure on me to like use it well and like do a really good job with it, and I'm like, okay, well, just don't look at me while I do this,
Yeah,
okay? Like
don't watch me.
I hate when people are watching me like, oh, how's he going to use his arm for that? And sometimes I don't have the myoelectric hand. I have the Greifer hook, which is my other very mechanical looking hand. It's not a hand at all. It's a clamp basically. And when I go out with that, I know the eyes are on me and stuff. And then I remember talking to, it was a girl that I was like I had a few dates with, and I'm like, sometimes it's like when I go to the grocery store, I feel like people's eyes are on me, and when I have this, so it depends on the day if I want to wear this, and like I wonder if what they're thinking when they look at me. And she's like, I honestly think people are probably looking at you and thinking that it's super awesome and super cool. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right, right? Like if people think that you're rocking it, right? Like it's super badass that you have this sweet myoelectric arm and you're killing it with it. So doing whether you're a little slower with it or you're fast with it, or like, you know what I mean? So that was nice. That made me realize that, hey, yeah, she's probably right.
one other insecurity I have is actually about like the future. I
Mm.
don't think I really thought about what the future would hold as someone as an amputee. It kind of gives me a bit of anxiety. This started to kick in after my mom passed away.
Mhm.
Uh, so for me, my mom was a big person that helped me out, like a caregiver, like not 24/7, obviously, but she was someone I knew I could rely on if I had to go through surgery and help with my dogs or stuff like that. And then losing Legrit at 2 months before, it was a lot of loss to be like, oh, those are the people I kind of knew I could rely on or who I had a future was hoping for a future with. And so therefore my insecurity started to develop because I'm in my late 30s and I'm like, who do I have left around when you don't have your own kids or your own family or your own spouse now? All those things start to make me be like, what does that look like in the future? Even something as simple as like shoveling snow outside. No, like I have one neighbor who's really sweet and sometimes she'll come and help, but I'm out there doing it. And I don't have anybody that thinks about coming and doing it for me aside from my dad who's like 73. So
Mhm.
at some point I'm like I don't want him doing it,
Mhm.
so there's insecurities that start coming up or those things started to connect to me like, when I lose my dad, like what actually do I really have left? So, and I start thinking about being an older person and what that will be like with a disability and like all those that start to insecurities start to pop up that I never really thought about as a kid before. I'm like, oh yeah, like my mobility will go down. I'll need more help down the road.
Mhm. I
So I don't know if
yeah,
you have ever thought of those things ever.
I have for sure. And I
Now I
think
am.
Sorry.
and you're so valid in these feelings. I think, I've really been since my marriage ended, and that reality of the plan that I had set in place, where I was taking care of someone for so long, so that they could then return that later in life for me. That all crumbled for me, and so that idea for me was the exact same as you, Amanda. Like it was immediate panic, and that was one of the first things that I panicked about when my marriage ended. And so, you know, and this isn't the only issue that I have health wise. And I've been known, you guys as my friends will know this, I've been known to have the weirdest health things pop up all the time. And so that has been a fear for me as well. And that's been a huge insecurity for me as well. And so I think now I have been really focusing on taking care of myself physically more, and thinking about backup plans. So, if this happens, then I'll do this. If I injure myself this way, then this will be my option. And because I feel you so much, Amanda, that's been a huge one for me, and a huge insecurity um that is actually something that bothers me more than I like to admit.
Yeah.
And so that is
Poor
definitely
James's face. Poor James's face is like developing insecurities as we're
Yes,
talking
I'm
about this.
developing insecurities. You just opened up a can of worms in my brain.
However, I will say I really like Jamie's approach and talking about coming up with backup plans or just mentally preparing yourself for well, instead just going about it, actually saying, okay, well, then we could do A, B, and C, which I'd say we're all something that we all have is resilience and adaptability, and very strongly as amputees. That's kind of how we've lived our entire life. So it's not that we won't be able to. I have strong faith that I am going to be able to, but my brain gets nervous once I'm like, oh crap, I actually have to think about those things. I didn't realize it before. So poor James, we're all at different stages, clearly.
I think, no, to be honest with you, I think I just buried it deep in the back of my brain, and it's just like it's now coming out. It's just like it was always there. Like
Yeah.
everyone kind of has insecurities about what the future holds, and especially when your plans, don't go exactly like you want it. But you made me realize too, like Jamie, you said, like, you had your kind of life planned out, and then unfortunately you have a divorce. Well, I'm kind of in the same situation where I'm a single father, and my daughter's also an amputee, man. And it's an amazing, beautiful thing, but it's also scares the crap out of me. Like, you know what I mean? Like what the future holds for her and myself, and people, just like how that's going to go. And of course I'm like, I know you just, you just got to roll with the punches and do your best to make a plan, and like try to be the best you can. And but it is a scary thing, like just people say like, oh, don't worry, your kids will take care of you or whatever when you're older. But like I'm not worried about like being taken care of or so much when I'm older. But it's like when you mentioned about the snow shoveling, you made me feel really bad, because you guys are talking about shoveling your driveways. I just got a snow removal service, and it's I mean, not everyone. Obviously, it's kind of like it can be kind of expensive, or whatever. So you might not
Okay,
have
but
the money for that. But oh my
I think
god,
it
is it a
snowed
lifesaver?
twice. It snowed twice this year where I live, so that would
Yeah,
not be worth
and
it.
I live, in Quebec. It's like you get dumped on, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Quebec
I
and the
don't
Ottawa area,
live.
it's a lot different. So and with
It'd be
it's
cheaper for
honestly
you
just
just go
because my
ahead, sorry.
tendonitis is so bad. But what's that?
It's just cheaper to pay like per removal. But
Oh, for you, absolutely.
yeah, like with the amount of snow we get, it wouldn't make logical sense to pay for a whole year, even though I've thought about that. Um, I also kind of took the approach that Jamie indicated. I just have to get stronger so I can take care of myself. And I do. I like, so I go out and do it. I luckily am fortunate enough that I can do it enough if I'm keeping up with it. So instead of waiting for like all the snow to come at once, I kind of gauge it like, okay, it's been 2 hours, it's accumulated a bit. I'm going to go out there and start. So that way, when I go out, I'm not going to be having to deal with as heavy of snow or as much snow. And then it makes it easier because you're doing it's like, oh, I'm only lifting 1 pound instead of 20 pounds, right? Obviously your
Hmm.
body's able to adjust, and I just do it patches at a time to what I could do and stop and break in between. So it was, and as I was doing it, I kept telling myself exactly what Jamie said. I just have to get stronger and teach my body how to do this at a different rate than I obviously expect it to be done. um, Given what my disabilities are. But there's other things that definitely come into play. But I do like Jamie's thought process on I just have to get stronger and figure out a way to be able to handle it for now, at least.
Yeah. Or different, right? As an example, you can get stronger or just do it differently depending
Different.
on your ability, right? And hiring a company is still getting it done. So
Correct.
hiring
Yep.
someone to do it is still getting it done, and that means you still got it done. It's no less of like, oh well, I didn't physically do it, so it's not done. That doesn't,
Yeah.
like, it's done. That's all
Yeah,
that matters.
absolutely.
To
I
be
think
fair, that's actually a huge pet peeve of mine is how many people are capable of removing their snow. If you're watching this right now and you're one of those people that's fully capable of removing your snow and you don't, for starters, that is just it grinds my gears on so many levels. But I'll start off with you should be doing it because it's just absolutely legal. It's a legal thing. You're supposed to be clearing it for other people who want to go out for walks and they have mobility issues and then they have to worry about these things. But in addition to that, where are the times where not only would you clear yours, but then you would go to your neighbor who is elderly or is disabled or not capable and go do it for them. Like, so many people are like, oh, well, maybe the neighbor broke their foot and they can't go out and do it. Yeah. And if you know that, go and do it for them. Like, that's a privilege to be able to do those things.
It
I'm
used
missing
to
a
be like that
leg.
for me.
It used to be like, the times are so different. So that's why I like, this is something I'm very passionate about, obviously. But in other words, if I'm able to do it as a leg amputee and it's dangerous for me to get out and help my neighbor when I know they're struggling or they're not home, then, so can you if you have the physical capacity to do so. And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I
And
agree.
with tendonitis too, that's the reason why I did it. Like in my early, my early 20s and early 30s, even, like that would be no problem. But the older you get, like I don't want to wear my arm out. And snow shoveling is one of the things that when I shovel my driveway, it's like a double car driveway. My arm is almost unusable for like a week. And I
Yeah,
guess
no.
when I
Work
started thinking,
smarter, not harder.
yeah, and when I started thinking about it more and more, I guess that would be one of my insecurities is like, what if something happens to my sound limb? Like, what if I injure this arm? Like, that's always a huge insecurity of mine. Like, what if it wears out? What if I'm not able to use it anymore? Like, I need to use, you know what I mean? I need this to get things done. Like, but then I start thinking like, well, there's lots of people I know that are missing both arms and are killing it. So like, you find a way to do
Yeah.
it, right? You got to find a way. There's adaptive techniques, including snow removal services, or like, but when it comes to anything, like it would amaze you for people that don't know anything about amputees or are listening to this podcast that don't have much experience with amputees. It would absolutely blow you away if you see an amputee or a multiple amputee figure their way around doing something. Like, we've all seen it before in our lives, like how these amputees are able to adapt to their situation and think outside the box to be able to do things. And it's pretty amazing, man, when you think about it. Like, the determination level to be able to prove yourself as well, it's just like so much higher in amputees. So it's so I guess I try not to think negatively like that, like, oh, what if something happened to me? But I guess it's definitely a reality as you get older. It's like you got to think about that. And again,
Well,
now
your
with my
brain,
daughter as an amputee, that's a whole other ball of insecurities that I have for her. Like, I know what it's like to grow up as an amputee, and I worry about the things that happened to me as an amputee and how and her being able to go through them and and persevere. Like, yeah, she has me to look up to and I can help teach her to a certain extent, but I know that she's still going to go through these things whether I'm there to help her or not. And that gives me that does give me some insecurity, you know what I mean? Like, because I know she has challenges ahead of her, and honestly, she's already so independent and so smart and so amazing with how she does everything that I to other parents that talk to me or parents from daycare, they say like, she's so amazing, man. Like, she's the way she gets herself, she's so independent, like getting herself dressed like ahead of the other kids with two hands. So it's like, that's reassuring. Like, other people are seeing like how amazing she is. I just still know that there are going to be challenges ahead for her, and that gives me, like, I think about it a lot, and it makes
There's
me,
challenges for everyone though, right? And like,
yeah.
but yeah, definitely. Like, I think you're valid. I think we're all valid in our, insecurities and concerns. I
yeah,
try my
every
best to just stay positive.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna
Hey,
say you kill it with kindness towards
Yeah,
yourself is what you
absolutely.
try to do. One way I combat it is just words of affirmation. So if I hear my brain saying you can't, you're gonna struggle, what if, then once I become self-aware of that, I start to actually say out loud, like, you can do this. You are capable. You will achieve it. And combat it with the opposite words because your brain actually, whatever which way you let it go, will win. So it's normal to have intrusive thoughts, but to be aware of them and then find a technique that works for you to work through them, which is why I'm probably the most confident, insecure person there is.
Love it. Love it.
Anyways, well, thank you for sharing your insecurities with us. If you're watching, we'd love to hear if you have insecurities as well. It may you be an amputee or not. Thank you for watching. And until next time, make sure you like the video, comment down below, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell notification. Until next time, peace.
Bye.